U.S. President Donald Trump says Iran gave Washington a very big present related to oil and gas, suggesting progress in talks between the warring countries. This comes as the U.S. has reportedly sent Iran a 15-point peace plan via Pakistan. Qatar has declared force majeure on long-term LNG supply contracts with 4 countries, including South Korea, after missile attacks damaged key energy facilities. Seoul is moving to strengthen diplomatic coordination with Gulf partners to secure alternative energy supplies. The South Korean government this morning unveiled that it will launch an emergency task force to help cushion the economy against the impact of the Middle East crisis. This comes a day after President Lee highlighted the need for a response system, warning of growing uncertainty in the supply of crude oil and natural gas. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. We begin with the latest on the Middle East conflict, where diplomacy and military moves are unfolding in parallel. U.S. President Donald Trump says a recent move by Iran could mark a turning point as Washington pushes to bring the war to an end. Our Mullin has the details.
U.S. President Donald Trump says negotiations to end the war in the Middle East are already underway and pointed to what he described as a major present from Iran that could signal a path towards de-escalation.
It was oil and gas related, and it was a very nice thing they did, but what it showed me is that we're dealing with the right people.
Speaking at the White House on Tuesday local time, Trump said the move was tied to energy flows through the Strait of Hormuz, a critical global oil route that has been severely disrupted during the conflict. He suggested the gesture reflects a broader shift in Iran's approach, saying Tehran is now talking sense in negotiations and has agreed it will never develop a nuclear weapon, something he described as the top condition for any ceasefire. He also argued the conflict has resulted in what he called regime change after repeated U.S. strikes on Iran's leadership. According to the New York Times, Washington has also sent Iran a 15-point proposal aimed at ending the war, addressing key issues such as Tehran's nuclear and ballistic missile programs and the security of key maritime routes. The plan was delivered through Pakistan, which is now emerging as a key diplomatic channel in the conflict. Pakistani officials have publicly offered to host talks between the two sides, while its military leadership is believed to be acting as an intermediary. But even as diplomatic efforts ramp up, the U.S. is also reinforcing its military posture in the region. The Associated Press reports that around 1,000 troops from the Army's 82nd Airborne Division are being prepared for deployment to the Middle East in the coming days, adding to thousands of Marines already heading to the region aboard Navy ships. The units are trained for rapid response missions, including securing key infrastructure and operating in hostile territory, highlighting the risk of further escalation even as talks continue. Meanwhile, Iran has indicated it is open to considering proposals for a lasting agreement, according to CNN, but only if they include sanctions relief and guarantees over its right to peaceful nuclear activity. Moon-Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Qatar has declared force majeure on major LNG supply contracts after missile attacks damaged key export facilities, raising fresh concerns over global energy security. Seoul is now scrambling to secure alternative supplies as disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz threaten prolonged instability in oil and gas markets. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Qatari state-owned energy company Qatar Energy has declared force majeure on long-term liquefied natural gas supply contracts with South Korea, China, Italy, and Belgium after missile attacks damaged key energy facilities. Strikes last week targeted installations belonging to the company in Ras Laffan, disrupting operations and affecting approximately 17% of Qatar's exports. The clause allows companies to suspend contractual obligations when unforeseen events make performance impossible. Qatar's energy minister said repairs to the damaged LNG facilities could take 3 to 5 years. With energy supplies already affected by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, South Korea has moved to strengthen diplomatic coordination with Gulf partners. Foreign Minister Jo Hyun held phone talks with Oman's Foreign Minister Badr bin Hamad Al Busaidi on Tuesday and requested cooperation in securing alternative supplies of liquefied natural gas and crude oil. During the call, Zhou also thanked Oman for its support for the movement of South Korean peacekeeping troops deployed in the region, as well as for its help evacuating South Korean nationals after the outbreak of hostilities at the end of February. The Omani foreign minister noted that major infrastructure across Gulf countries has suffered damage from recent Iranian attacks and called for Seoul's continued interest and support. Both sides agreed to deepen bilateral ties and cooperate in efforts to restore peace and stability in the Middle East. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
As the conflict in the Middle East continues, Prime Minister Kim Min-seok unveiled a government-wide emergency economic response system this morning. This comes a day after President Lee Jae-myung called for a coordinated response at a cabinet meeting. Our correspondent Song Yu-jin has the details.
South Korea is stepping up its response to help cushion the economy against the impact of the Middle East crisis. At a briefing on Wednesday, Prime Minister Kim Min-seok announced the launch of an emergency economic task force.
With the conflict in the Middle East continuing for more than 3 weeks, its economic impact, including energy and raw material shortages, is expanding. The Emergency Economic Headquarters, led by the Prime Minister, is an upgraded and expanded version of the existing Emergency Economic Ministers meeting.
The task force will bring together the finance, industry, health, and foreign affairs ministers, as well as the chairperson of the Financial Services Commission. Each will oversee a dedicated response team. It will support the implementation of key measures discussed at emergency economic meetings chaired by President Lee Jae-myung.
With the emergency economic meetings chaired by the President serving as the top control tower, we will mobilize all available national resources. To support this, the government will respond as one team through the Emergency Economic Headquarters.
It is set to begin operations next week and will meet twice weekly. The announcement comes a day after President Lee called for an emergency response system, warning of growing uncertainty in the supply of crude oil and natural gas amid the conflict in the Middle East.
민생과 경제산업 전반에 발생할지 모를 중대한 위기에 대처하기 위해서 정부 차원의 비상 대응 체계를 선제적으로 가동해야겠습니다.
As part of the efforts, the Blue House told reporters on Wednesday that it is setting up what it calls an emergency economic situation room to work in coordination with the emergency economic headquarters. Headed by Presidential Chief of Staff Kang Hoon-sik, the situation room will consist of 5 response teams that will oversee their counterparts at the PM-led task force. Song Yu-jin, Arirang News.
Suspected drug trafficking ringleader Park Wang-yeol has been temporarily repatriated to South Korea from the Philippines. Park, who arrived at Incheon International Airport this morning, has been serving a 60-year sentence in the Philippines for the murder of 3 Koreans in 2016. He's also suspected of orchestrating large-scale drug distribution in South Korea through social media, even while behind bars. His return followed a direct request by President Lee Jae-myung during a summit with Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. earlier this month, which helped resolve the repatriation process after more than 9 years of difficulties. The transfer was carried out under an agreement that allows suspects to be temporarily handed over for criminal proceedings, while their trials or sentences is paused in the Philippines, with South Korean authorities now launching a full investigation into Park. Over half of South Korea's top 500 listed companies by revenue posted a combined increase in operating profit last year compared to the year before. According to data research firm CEO Score on Wednesday, total operating profit for the 254 firms included in its analysis rose almost 24% in 2025 compared to 2024, reaching a combined 228.27 trillion Korean won, or about $153 billion. SK hynix posted the largest increase, followed by Samsung Electronics, with a combined operating profit of around $61 billion, up 61.6% from 2024. Their gains accounted for nearly 79% of the total increase. The remaining 252 firms posted only around a 7% increase in operating profit. The analysis only included companies that released financial reports for 2025. Gold is typically seen as a safe haven asset, especially in times of war and other crises. But the recent dramatic drop in gold prices has unsettled investors. Our correspondent Park Junan explains more.
The price of the safe haven asset gold has been showing volatility in recent months. Hitting over $5,600 per troy ounce in late January, the gold price as of Tuesday is trading at around $4,300, down over 20% in just less than 2 months. Largely, this is due to fears stemming from the conflict in the Middle East outweighing the demand for gold as a safe haven. This comes as a surprise, as during geopolitical tensions or periods of uncertainty, demand for precious metals such as gold and silver, among others, is boosted. Instead, surging oil prices triggered by the war have reignited fears of global inflation. Also, higher energy costs are reducing expectations that the U.S. Federal Reserve and other central banks will cut interest rates at their upcoming rate-setting meetings.
But the biggest thing probably is investors are concerned that it's had a big run. They're concerned that there are not going to be interest rate cuts. So you're going to lose more opportunity cost of holding it versus getting some type of interest off of gold.
Because gold prices are sensitive to interest rates, oil prices, and the value of the dollar, any meaningful peace deals in the Middle East and eased inflation risks could help gold prices bounce back. Despite the sharp correction and short-term volatility, major banks have not lowered their 2026 targets. JP Morgan forecasts gold reaching $6,300 per ounce by the end of 2026, while Bank of America maintained its $6,000 target. Park Junan, Arirang News.
On the cultural front, Netflix says 18.4 million viewers worldwide tuned in to watch BTS comeback stage during the live broadcast of BTS Comeback Live Arirang on Saturday. According to Netflix on Tuesday, the program ranked in the weekly top 10 in 80 countries, while reaching number 1 in 24 countries, including South Korea, Mexico, and Japan. The figures include audiences who watched the initial live stream, as well as those who streamed the performance again within the following day. And BTS fever is spreading beyond the concert stage in Seoul. Museums are welcoming global fans with special exhibitions and events. Our Chung Il-im shows us out.
BTS's comeback show may be over, but fans can relive the energy in Seoul. Following the weekend concert, major national institutions are welcoming the influx of global fans with special exhibitions and events incorporated with Korean culture. At the National Museum of Korea, fans can view traditional artifacts such as the 10-story stone pagoda and moon jar, pieces known to have captured the BTS members' interest, with an English guide provided. But the experience goes beyond the exhibits. A major highlight is the exclusive collaboration between BTS's fifth album Arirang and the museum's official merchandise brand Mute. Fans have been buying items ranging from traditional Korean-themed hairpins to modern clothing and bags, blending Korea's rich heritage with the group's new music.
I think that's the highlight. Like they try to incorporate the national treasure, if I'm not mistaken, like the bell, into the merch. So I think it's a really nice touch. Also Korean, also BTS.
Over at the National Folk Museum, games that members actually played from the popular YouTube show Run BTS have been brought to life. The outdoor K-playground offers tourists a chance to try their hand at traditional games like spinning tops or 팽이, 투호, 제기차기, and 딱지치기. Visitors laugh and show enthusiasm for Korea's oldest games. Bullseye or not, games like 투호 and spinning tops offer a truly unique experience. By playing traditional Korean games, fans aren't just having fun. They're connecting with their favorite stars on a whole new level. Over at the National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art's dedicated listening space, Love Quarter, fans dive into a completely different vibe. Bathed in blue light, the space is filled with BTS's new title track, Swim. Paper installations move with the wind like ocean waves, giving visitors the surreal sensation of swimming through the music as they read the lyrics surrounding them.
It's great. I mean, it has like a lot of like the lyrics, and it's really nice to see it. It really feels like you're in the ocean, so like it's a very immersive experience.
The cultural celebration extends to other venues as well, featuring a BTS time capsule at the National Museum of Korean Contemporary History and an exhibition of Korean literature that inspired the group's music at the National Library. 정혜림, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. Russia launched its largest daytime drone assault of its war with Ukraine on Tuesday, killing 3 people, wounding dozens, and damaging a UNESCO World Heritage Site in western Ukraine. More than 550 drones hit Ukrainian cities in broad daylight, a deliberate break from Russia's usual tactic of nighttime attacks. Combined with an overnight bombardment of missiles and hundreds more drones, Russia sent nearly 1,000 long-range drones into Ukraine in under 24 hours. In the western city of Lviv, closer to Vienna than to the front lines, 22 people were injured, and a centuries-old monastery in the city center was damaged. In Ivano-Frankivsk, a drone strike killed a soldier and his daughter. President Zelensky, in his nightly address, called the scale of the attacks proof that Russia has no intention of ending the war. Traders placed $500 million on oil prices falling exactly 15 minutes before President Trump announced a delay to strikes on Iran's energy infrastructure. At 7:49 p.m. Korean time on Monday, traders moved over 5,000 lots of Brent and WTI crude futures. 15 minutes later, Trump posted on Truth Social that constructive talks with Tehran were underway, and oil prices collapsed 15% in minutes. In the 60 seconds following Trump's post, 13 million barrels worth of oil futures changed hands. Brent crude and WTI both fell by $13 a barrel. The Securities and Exchange Commission, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, and the White House all declined to comment on the spike in trades ahead of Trump's post. It remains unknown who placed the trades. Oil prices are still more than 40% above pre-conflict levels, with roughly 1/5 of the world's daily oil supply cut off by the war in the Middle East. The U.S. Senate confirmed Park Wang-yeol as Secretary of Homeland Security on Tuesday. Mullin, a former MMA fighter and a businessman, replaces the fired Kristi Noem. He signaled during his confirmation hearing that he would scale back some of Noem's more aggressive immigration tactics, including warrantless entries into private homes. Public support for the Trump administration's immigration crackdown has dropped in recent months, and the White House has privately signaled a shift in messaging away from mass deportations and toward targeting criminals. Liverpool superstar Mohamed Salah announced Tuesday that he will leave Liverpool at the end of this season, ending a 9-year run that made him the 3rd highest scorer in the club's history. The 33-year-old Egyptian forward scored 255 goals in 435 appearances for the club, winning 2 Premier Leagues and a Champions League. Liverpool confirmed the departure, calling Salah one of the greatest players in the club's history. Salah and the club reached an agreement over his exit 1 year before his contract was set to expire. This follows a public falling out with manager Arne Slot that included Salah telling reporters the club had thrown him under the bus. He has yet to announce his next move. Chu Ji-han, Arirang News.
It's been raining on the southern coast and Jeju Island with around 5 to 10 millimeters in the forecast. However, it's a different story across the central regions and parts of Gyeongsang-Pukto province where dry weather alerts are being in place. And considering the recent stretch of dry conditions, the risk of wildfire is high, so extra caution is a must. Temperatures have been soaring way above the norms, but air quality has been an issue. Except on Jeju, the whole region will be trapped in dusty air again, with an ultrafine dust advisory issued for parts of Gyeongsang-do provinces. And this afternoon, the capital area in Daejeon will be getting up to 19 degrees Celsius. Daegu makes it to 17 degrees, while Jeju only makes it to 13 degrees Celsius this afternoon, but will be dust-free. After today, most regions will stay mostly clear with more late April warmth, but air quality will remain a headache for many of us.
That's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.